You're listening to Amazing Radio. This is Amazing Afternoons. I'm delighted to say that Elizabeth Liddle is on the line with me right now, and we're going to have a session and chat. Elizabeth, how are you today?
I'm really good. I'm good, thank you. It's lovely to be here, Frankie. Thanks for having us on the show.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Elizabeth, because I'm a big fan of yours. I think you've got a lot of potential in your music, and you obviously are very dedicated. But for the people listening around the world on amazingradio.com, tell us about yourself. How old are you? How long you've been making music? Let's start with that.
Um, it's a hard one. So I've been writing since I was probably about 12, but maybe nothing very good when I was 12. So I've been performing my own stuff since I was probably about 18, 19. I'm 24 as of last Monday. So yeah, so I'm 24 now. I released my debut EP last year. And yeah, just kind of been performing kind of in the northeast. I live in County Durham. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you always been a pianist then? Is that, or can you play anything else, or has it always been the piano-led kind of vibe you've gone for?
So I originally started playing the guitar, but it was one of those things I just couldn't pick it up quite as quick as I did the piano. So my mum's friend was getting rid of a old piano. Um, and my mum said, no, don't get rid of it, we'll have it. So anyway, I taught myself on this like upright piano. Bearing in mind it's severely out of tune, and it still is to this day. But I write a lot of my songs on that piano even now, which is a bit annoying because I have to kind of put them up a key when I get back on my keyboard. But yeah, so I taught myself piano, and that's about it really. I play a little bit guitar, but I wouldn't say I was a guitarist.
Yeah. So what was influencing you in the first place to start getting into music, as opposed to maybe your influences? Now, let's start with what first got you excited about music.
I think I've always loved music. My mom's like, my whole family are big on music. They've always taken me to gigs. They've always kind of bought me like a tradition as my auntie always buys me a classic album every year at Christmas and every birthday. So it's like, when I was 14, I got Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Like things like that. Every year I would get like a classic album.
Mhm.
And I think when I was 16, so it was maybe my family friend who bought me Carole King's Tapestry, and that was kind of where I was like, oh, I'd been writing a little bit before then, but that was kind of where I was like, this is actually kind of what I want to do now. Yeah, and I think when I was learning the piano, just loads of different albums influenced me, like Fleetwood Mac and people like that, like just artists that I've grown up with and that have been in the car. Um, yeah, even silly ones like, well, not silly ones, but Whitney Houston was like, my mom loved Whitney Houston, and I would listen to her in the car, and just albums kind of influenced me to kind of get into music. So yeah, I've always been really like a music lover, I think.
Yeah, well, I definitely picked up on the Carole King thing when I first heard your music. It was definitely in there. But the nice thing about your music is, I think it's just organically coming out, those influences, and that's the best way to be, I think. And you can definitely hear that in your music. We're gonna have a first session track from you now, "Lonely." This was your debut single, right?
Yes, it was my first single I ever released. It was a song I wrote when I was 16, actually. So it's an old song.
Yeah, and I guess it means a lot to you then if it was your first one. It was a good mark in the sand as to where you are, but do you still perform it?
Yeah, I still play it with the band now, which obviously it sounds a lot different to when I originally wrote it. But I think I just really, obviously it's had a lot of development over the years, but I think it was probably the first song I wrote that I thought I'm really proud of it. Kind of, I was really like, I felt like I kind of knew who I was as an artist when I wrote that song. So I thought I would kind of do a version today because it's one of my favorites that I've wrote.
Fantastic. Well, let's hear it then. This is Elizabeth Liddle in session for Amazing Radio right now with her debut single. This is "Lonely."
Why'd you always come around all lonely? Still got an empty drink in your hand. How many drinks does it take for you to think
Elizabeth Liddle in session for us here on Amazing Radio. That was Lonely, beautiful track. And we have one more up our sleeves, don't we, Elizabeth? But we'll get into that soon because you've got a new single coming out on Friday. You've done a version of it. But I want to find out more about you and what you're all about and how you go about your music. You mentioned before we went into that track that you have a band now as well, and that has maybe shaped the new sound of Elizabeth Liddle. Tell us a bit about that. How did you end up recruiting these people to play with you then?
Yeah, well, it's weird. They're all like really, really good friends of mine. So we're kind of like a weird little family. So I played in, so my guitarist Billy and my drummer Rob, and also Emma Robson, who does some vocals in my band. I play in their band, which is Moonwax. So
Okay.
kind of both, it just kind of joined that way. And then Will, my bass player, is from my college that I went to when I did music. And we didn't kind of join my band when we kind of left college. It just kind of happened over time. But those, like, they're absolutely incredible musicians in themselves, if that makes sense. Like, they're great artists in their own right, and I feel like we all work really well together. They're very creative. So kind of I tend to just write my songs, and then usually I go to the studio and kind of develop them there. And then for some of them, I've kind of taken them to the band. And this one, my new single, that's kind of one of those songs where I did that. I wrote it on the piano, just myself. And then I took it to the band and was like, right, what we're doing with this? What do you guys think? And it kind of went from there.
Yeah, so this now you have this more fuller sound. I understand you're still writing just on the piano, but this is a kind of a bigger sound, and in your head you need these musicians to do it live, I guess. Then, and that's the experience you want to bring, more of a show. Would it be right in saying, than just yourself on there, which you can do, which we've just seen in the session. But you feel like the more people on stage can bring a bigger sound, if you like, to your music.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I mentioned obviously before, Carole King's one of my favorite artists, and she's got beautiful songs on the piano, just her, but she's also got amazing songs that with the band kind of are like brought alive. And I kind of feel like that with myself. Like, I've done gigs by myself, and I love playing them. I love, that's how I write. So all of my songs like kind of just come from the piano that way. But when I kind of hear them in that band sense, like I remember one of the first times that we played like as a band, as this lineup a couple months ago. It was a gig, and I actually got quite emotional, like hearing my songs in that format, because it was like, obviously when I'm writing them on the piano, I can hear it in my head, and these guys are great. Where I mean, I'm not like the most technical person when I'm talking in rehearsal, so I kind of, when I'm talking to Rob, my drummer, I'm like, can you do this? He's like, Elizabeth, that's not the right term. That's not like, but that's just the kind of the way I am. But they kind of get me like that, which is really nice. So
no, it must be a good buzz. I remember when the first time, like, you're playing like a big stage and you can hear the bass come in, and then the kick drum and the snare behind you. Because I was at the front of my band when I was singing all the time. You got the whole sound behind you, and you will be the same now. It's just like, wow, this is good. And it's something special, isn't it, when you're playing with friends and you all connect and you all lock in and you all get in a groove. There's something really special there, isn't it? Which you can't really explain unless you experience that.
Yeah, it's like, I really agree. It's such a special thing, and I think it's a really rare thing as well. And it's nice to find musicians that you really connect with in that way, and kind of just, not only get along as musicians, but get along kind of as friends as well, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very lucky kind of to have them like as a band, because they're really supportive, and yeah, they're just fab.
It's good, and it sounds like you're having fun as well doing these gigs, which it is. It's life experiences, but you're doing it with friends at the same time, and those are just going to increase as you move through your career as well, Elizabeth. I've got no doubt about that. Your sound, though, is definitely developing into. There's some kind of Americana haze to your music. It's got a bit of a swing to it. There's some kind of 60s thing going on there as well. Obviously, it's modern, and because you are in 2023, but there's some really nice reference points in your influences at the moment. Are you listening to anything else, or is your music listening, has it broadened recently, or are you striving for a certain sound at the moment?
I mean, I'm quite like I kind of like all music really. So obviously I always say that like 60s, 70s is like my biggest influence, like those singer-songwriters of that time. And I love them so much because I feel like they almost didn't define what their genre was. They kind of like they wrote because they loved writing and their music kind of just became their own original sound. But you know, it had influences from soul, it had influences from pop, country and all those kind of genres together. And I kind of, I mean, I hopefully feel that's kind of what my music's kind of.
Yeah, I definitely get the kind of Steely Dan, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Neil Young kind of feel. But you know, one of the top people in the game at the moment, Taylor Swift, embraces all that kind of country sound, doesn't she? So well, and she's the biggest pop star in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I love all of those artists you've mentioned. I mean, I went to see Graham Nash at the Sage. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, I cried my eyes out when he sang Our House because it's one of my favorite songs. But Taylor Swift's one of my favorite artists as well. She actually is the reason when I was younger that I learned how to play the piano. So my mum bought me a little Taylor Swift book with chords in. And that's how I learned how to play it. That's kind of basically how I know everything now, just from looking at little in the book. But yeah, so I'm like I say, I take influence from like a lot of people, and I like to listen to different genres. So I'm not just kind of pinpointed into one kind of thing.
It's nice to give your ears a break, isn't it, and just exploit something new.
Yeah, I love all. I mean, like I said, I love all music. I like rock music. I like kind of like everything really.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
cool.
modern singer-songwriters as well. Like Wise Blood's amazing artists at the minute who I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
But there's loads of artists that I love.
Amazing, amazing. Let's hear this new single then, What I Wouldn't Do. We'll hear it now, and then we'll speak about it once we've played it. This is your brand new single, a lovely version for Amazing Radio, What I Wouldn't Do. You're listening to Amazing Radio. This is Amazing Afternoons. That was What I Wouldn't Do, new single from Elizabeth Liddle, officially out on Friday, right, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I am so excited. I feel like it's kind of flown over since, you know, when you upload it to the distributor and you're sitting there and from writing. And yeah, I can't believe it's out on Friday now.
Tell us about that track then. Where did you record it? How long have you had it in your locker? Is the lineup of the band, are they on the recording as well?
Yeah, so I wrote it last year, I think. I wrote it last year in the summer of last year. It was one of those songs that I feel like it kind of, I just wrote it in like a space of like an hour, where like sometimes I feel like I might write a song and then I'll come back to it and I'll change it and whatever, but it was one of those songs where I kind of wrote it in one go, and then I sat on it for a while and thought, oh, I really want to record that now. So I recorded it with Dee Dowling, who is always kind of like produces my music, and we work together on that. But I brought this one to the band and we kind of developed it in rehearsals, and then we went to the studio and then obviously developed it further with Dee. But yeah, it's my band, they're all on the track. And then Phil Richardson as well, who was my college tutor. He played organ on the tracks as well, which, I mean, he's incredible. And he played on my debut EP as well, which was pretty cool. But
yeah. That's so nice. It's good to hear, especially using people from your past who maybe have helped you along the way as well, like your college lecturer there. Okay then, so the single comes out on Friday. Are you doing any gigs to support the single coming out, Elizabeth?
I've got my next headline. It's not till November, but
Okay.
I'm kind of planning a couple of releases around that time as well. So
Right.
it's almost kind of like for the single, but kind of for further releases as well, which is pretty exciting.
So is that the plan then, just to keep putting out singles for now, and then, well, what about like a longer body of work? Is that something you're ambitious to do, like an EP, or maybe one day have and hold a record?
Yeah, well, I would absolutely, I mean, a dream, I would love to do like an album eventually. Hopefully next year I'd love to release another EP. But yeah, long term, I'd absolutely love to write, you know, do an album, because I'm writing all the time, and that's what I love to do. I love kind of as well, like putting songs together that kind of all flow together, if that makes sense. Like some of my favorite albums, I love, you know, when you listen to people and they listen to maybe a single or something of an artist, I'm really like an album person. So
Yeah.
if I kind of listen to someone and I put the album on and maybe only I like 2 songs of that album, I might not go back to it, where like I like a full album where I'm like, oh, I love every single song. So I'd love to have, you know, my own kind of album like that, where other people might feel that way. But yeah, so I'm excited for the headline. That's in Newcastle.
Yeah.
But hopefully hopefully another release before the end of the year, and then by next year maybe another EP. That's what I'm hoping.
Any ambitions to take it further on the road as well? I mean, there'll be people listening to this all around the world, but I guess you got to start moving outside the region, and then maybe down south and Scotland, maybe to Wales, and then Europe and beyond. That's the plan, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, but hopefully by next year I would love to do, you know, more gigs outside the Northeast. I'd love to do more gigs of my own kind of outside the Northeast. Or, you know, like, I don't know, opening for some artists that I really love. That would also be a goal, definitely.
Amazing. It's the future's bright, Elizabeth, and we're very appreciative of you doing these session tracks for us here on Amazing Radio. Thanks once again. Good luck with the single coming out on Friday. And don't be a stranger. Keep in touch, because I think, you know, you're going to have a good career ahead of you. It's just a pleasure to speak to you this afternoon.
Oh, no, thanks so much, Frankie. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.